And let's press record and we'll see what it will allow me to do. Yeah, so how are you feeling at the moment about this whole project? Like, what are your...
I'm really excited. I think that of all the, the things that I have on my list, on my sort of life list, on my plate right now are, like you were saying in video one, they're more sort of destination focused. So it'll be fun to do my classes, but it's really about getting to a certain destination. And there's a certain amount of like crap you have to deal with just to get there, that, you're coming in as a student and there's 500 people in the class, and, you want individualized attention from the instructor, but you're not going to get it. And I'm really feeling like this project needs to be my core, because it is what is going to keep me connected to community, not feeling lonely, feeling empowered, and doing the practice of the somatic release that's so important to regulate my energy. I have a friend who she's a microbiologist, but she teaches this like aerobics class in the morning, because it's the only way she would ever go to the gym. She's like, if I didn't teach the class, I would never do it. And I feel like this is the same for me. Like, I need group to keep me accountable to the process.
Yeah, no, I completely get that. That's why I do my challenges, right? It's like I'm doing it for me and you all get the benefit. It's a win-win, which is kind of the opposite of, it's almost like the opposite of what we're taught in business. It's like, well, you offer what the clients want, and that's kind of important. Like you're saying, I don't know if anybody really wants this, but I'm like, well, if you feel that you want to create it, we just create the kind of container that will attract the people to it. That's how it works, kind of thing. And I think it's really interesting way of doing it. It's like, I'm just going to live my life and do my challenges for me, and then the net result is that everybody wins, kind of thing. So I completely understand that.
Yeah, I mean, that was the big thing. Like, I love homework and I love doing exercises, and anytime anyone's like, oh my God, listen to this or try this stretch, like, I want to do it. I'm curious. But I always, I'm always about homework, and Alex, my husband, is like, not everybody likes homework. Some people just want to like, just, have the absence of an activity. And so I know that like part of it is who you're attracting, but I also wanted to like be of service to this community. So it's a little bit of like a, how do you balance?
Yeah. Okay. The answer is you will have a whole range of people in your community, right? Okay. You will have some people who do everything. As long as they've got the time, they will want that stuff to do, and they will log in every day, and they will like, what's Nicole sharing today? You'll have other people who will dip in and out. There'll be other Facebook groups. They'll have jobs and families and pets and kids and all this kind of stuff. And I think our role as a kind of figurehead, if you like, which is the word that's come through, our role as a figurehead is to provide those resources and to let go, right? So that's going to be a bit of a challenge, I think, for you. And it was a bit of a challenge for me when I started running my challenges in my Facebook group, going, I know for a fact, like, you do your video and you see how many people have watched it, and you're like, what's wrong with people, right? I tell you what's wrong with people. They're really busy people, right? They've got other things to do. And I go like, my job is to show up and let go, right? Because that's all we can ever do. And and I speak from experience as a kind of recovering control freak. You will drive yourself nuts trying to control what people do. So I will just throw that in there straight away. So it's really, I think there's a real balance, and some of these answers you'll only know the answers to some of this when you're actually out there doing it, right? We can't preempt all the answers, but I can certainly speak from my experience of being in groups and running groups and all this kind of stuff, running communities. And it was really fascinating when I first ran like Moneyfestation, which was a 30-day challenge, and a lot of people run little challenges for 5 days or 7 days or something, on Facebook, and they then upsell to a program at the end. And I quite like the longer commitment because it works for me. If I did something for 5 days, like my challenge would be done by now if I did 5 days and I'm just getting going. So for me, I like the 30-day thing. And when I first ran it the first time, I got this amazing message from this woman who, she couldn't afford to hire me and she hadn't done every day, but she said, what I've learned about you, Claire, is that you show up every single day. Like you said, you'd be there every day for 30 days, putting content in and running the group, and you have been. And it's like, it doesn't matter if she's only been there for like 10 out of the 30 days. She knew that if she went into the group, there'd be new content from me. And it's almost like, oh, that's really interesting, because it's kind of people are seeing that I show up. And actually that's part of the thing. It's like, oh, if I go to the group on any given day, you know, Monday to Friday, if that seems to be your pattern, is like Monday to Friday, there'll be something fresh to look at, something quick that they can implement or do or what have you. And it's like, whether they show up or not, it's kind of you setting the boundaries for yourself and for the group, so that you go, if you show up, there'll be new content Monday to Friday. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And going, some days it's like, why am I doing this? Because nobody's watching it. And it's kind of my job's to show up and in full enthusiasm for my own project, and then go off and do my own manifesting and come back and share the results of my own manifesting to encourage people to do what I'm teaching them to do, right? So it's kind of, that works really well for me, because, and it's really interesting because as my accountability buddy, we had this conversation like last week where I went, I'm really good if I'm accountable in public, and I've had the best week, like just showing up fully in my group and running it and doing stuff. And it's like, but it suits me really well because I'm that kind of extroverty, you know, it's good for the teacher in me, the coach in me, the extrovert, the performer, like everything, it kind of fulfills it. So it's going to be a bit of a process to work out what works for you, so you don't feel like you're over giving, or you don't feel like your own energy is being compromised. But I think you're very aware of your own energies. And so I think you'll be able to kind of navigate that as you go, sort of thing.
Yeah. So the broad strokes of running the group make sense to me, but I'd love to have your sense of filling in the gaps. Like, you know, like Sydney's group is a great example. We had the presentations with the speakers, and then Sydney did her thing, and then people were sharing. But I'm kind of curious, like when you're running your group, you come in the morning and you're like, you sit down to engage, and like, what's the process you run through on that? Are you checking people's posts first? Are you, did you make a plan and you're like ready to deliver your live, that's your plan? Or what are the pieces that I need to think about that need to be going on behind the scenes to make the group function?
Yeah, okay. So I'll talk about me, and it might be different for you. Is I'm best without a plan. I'm best in the moment. So my plan is to show up every day for 30 days and to manifest what I've said I want to manifest for myself, like my clients, my next location, and all this kind of stuff that's written in my own vision. Like that's my job. And I don't have a spreadsheet with what I'm teaching for the next 30 days on it at all, because that would stop me doing it. If that feels like something that would be useful for you, if that's the way you like to structure your brain, your tasks and stuff, then by all means do it.
The reason that I was gravitating towards a plan is because my structure involves having something new every day. And I just knew that I wouldn't have time every day to like go out and find it. So I thought, well, if I could get 10 things ahead of time or 7 things ahead of time and have a plan for this is the schedule, that would give me a little breathing room to then go out and find the next 10 things.
Yeah, completely. So I'm doing my interview series on my page. And of course, because they're a guest speaker, I'm putting them in the diary, like what day free, what time do you want to do it, or morning or evening. And so those are kind of appointments. So I know that I've got certain things coming up. But for myself, I work best if I'm responding to what's happening, like right in front of me. So if people are having queries and questions around certain things, it's like, that's tomorrow's topic, right? And like I had this call with Leslie, and she's like, oh, I'd really love to have coaching, but I can't afford it, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, here's an idea. How about I do some live coaching to show other people the process of putting the manifesting and the marketing together? You get half an hour of my time, as long as you're prepared to do it, so that we can show it to everybody, sort of thing. And I had no intention of doing live coaching in the group, but I was like, well, there we go. That feels like the right thing to offer. So that's the way I work the best. So my intention with the 30-day manifesting thing is to show up every day. with some kind of content. It won't always be like, I'm not planning to do a live stream today because there's a lot of content that people, I'm still putting people in the groups. There's a lot of content for people to watch if they want to. And because I had like a morning off and then I'm doing this with you, it's like, actually the group's fine for today. It's a Saturday. So I kind of look at how many people are online and engaging anyway. It's a beautiful, beautiful day in England. So people are out doing stuff. So it's like, that's fine. I've posted a little meme this morning and that's about it. And I'll go back and just check some responses. Like your own, you know, and it's like, if anybody's engaging, I'll respond. But I'm not going to go, I need to put more in there because nobody's doing anything. I'm like, fine, it's a Saturday. Let's just move on and give everybody a bit of breathing space. So you'll kind of get to feel what works. But certainly if you think, you know, if I had like the next Monday to Friday for the next 2 weeks all planned in and I knew what I was doing, and that would give you a feeling of like, great, I'm organized, I know what I'm doing, I don't have to think about it. Maybe you'll sit down like on a Sunday afternoon or on a Monday morning or whenever you've got time in your schedule to kind of plan stuff out. If that feels like that would work for you, then do that. I'm very much a living it on the fly kind of girl. So
yeah, no, and I think it's absolutely appropriate to respond to people's, you know, kind of where people are at, because I remember
completely
Sydney,
yeah,
she showed up to like teach this one thing and we were all like, but wait a minute, what? And so she had to take a step back. I'm curious how you decide what's the most present thing to share for you. Do you like
intuition?
Okay.
Looking at what's in the group, looking at what's coming up, looking at what people are struggling with, and feeling like, and also just, and I think this would be very appropriate for you as well, is that I share what's happening to me, because I'm going through this as well. Like, I'm further down the path than some of you to who there's all this energy manifesting magical kind of strategy combination stuff is new, but I'm still doing it like with you. So it's almost like, don't be surprised if this happens, because it's just happened to me and this is something that might happen. And I celebrate my successes, I celebrate my challenges, because I think people like to see me actually going through it and talking about my own experience, as well as being there as a teacher. I'm there as a doer, if that makes sense. So what you can do, and you know, we can talk a bit more about structure. We'll just sort of explore this. Is sort of, you might want to have a vague theme for like, okay, so Mondays we'll talk about movement. Thursdays we'll talk about thinking. I love a bit of alliteration. So movement and thinking. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, I actually want to, you know, maybe we'll do Q&A on one day, and then the other 2 days I'm going to talk about something that's really top of my mind. So it's, you know, it could be something you've read in the news, or something about, you know, what's happened to you, or something you've seen in the group, so that you have the flexibility, but you've got a kind of structure, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So how do you think, like, when you're, so if you imagine, so trying to let my brain and my mouth catch up with each other. Okay, so when you're in Sydney's group and you're there as a participant, like, what did you find? So we did the free one, and I think the thing with Sydney is so she's got her Visionary Souls group, which is free, where we did the 7-day thing, and then we were in a paid for group. And I want you to be very mindful of kind of not offering too much for free, if you like, and we can talk about that in a bit more detail. But when you were there as a participant, like, what did you find useful as a participant, both in receiving and also the kind of interaction taking part in? Like, what did you find useful in that?
I think it was useful to feel like you weren't alone, like feel like other people had similar struggles, that you weren't the only one who'd ever experienced whatever you were experiencing. I think it was helpful to get guidance, or instruction. I mean, that group really was about teaching a specific set of skills and a specific set of practices. So when you're like, wait, am I doing this right? It was nice to be able to ask a question and get a response. I think that people want support. When I did my kind of introductory phone calls gathering information about this, people said they wanted support, but they wanted it to look a certain way. They wanted it to be positive. They wanted practical advice, but they didn't want therapy.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and I think they wanted to feel momentum. I think that was one thing that's positive about your group, is like people are excited and people are out there doing things, and so it feels like something's happening. And so when you're like dragging, and this happened to me a couple of times, this happened to me this morning when I was like and I posted in the group, and it was because there was energy there was something happening, and I needed to like plug into that to get myself past my block in that moment. So those are I think the big ones.
Okay, so what came through as you said that was kind of, you know, she's got a particular 7 things that she got us to look at, and with my manifesting, it might seem like it's a bit all over the place, but actually here's the basics. These are the basics. It's like about intention, vibration, vision, you know, guided action, coming back and seeing what works, enjoying yourself as much as possible, looking at your physical energy, like stuff that's really obvious for me, but other people go, oh my God, like you've just reminded me how important that is. So do you have like a basic, looking at like what you've learned about being an empath and your own energy, do you think there's like a basic toolkit that you could have as a kind of foundational piece for people?
This is actually my main block and my main fear, is that I don't know enough to facilitate this group because I'm so new myself.
Okay.
The only thing that's worked for me is having a somatic practice, like having things that affect your body. So this is something that I learned sort of accidentally in the Sydney group, which is that if I was dancing and I was moving and I had my aromatherapy and my sound healing, and I was like tending to my senses and tending to my body, it became much easier to set boundaries. It became much easier to sort of keep other people out, because I was in here. And so that's where I'm starting. Okay. And I know,
tell me about that practice then. Like as you sit there, imagine you're in that and you're doing it right now, and tell me about it. Like, tell me how it feels to be doing that for yourself.
So right now I feel sort of like an open highway most of the time, you know, and not just like a highway, but like a highway where you could drive in any direction. Yeah. And so you could get hit with somebody's energy from this side. It can come from the front, you know, bright colors, loud sound, somebody's obnoxious, like it comes from all directions.
So you're like, here's what's coming through. So you're like a road junction in India, right? Yeah. Where you've got a cow, you've got a tuk-tuk, you've got a motorbike, you've got a car, everybody's weaving around, there's no rules, everybody's tooting, you've got smells, you've got sound, you've got hot heat, like.
Yes, exactly. And what I have found is like taking time to curate the environment so that, you know, I have my peppermint smell and I have my very nice sound healing, which is just like soothing. That not only blocks out, you know, well, my house is quite quiet, but like it's what I was doing for so long, and what I think a lot of empaths do, is they try to shut down. And so they're trying to get to the absence of something. Yeah. And I'm actually trying to actively put things in that are good, that feel good. So putting in good smells, putting in good sounds, and then the energy of that sort of, you know, soothing gives you the energy to then work with your mind. And your mind's the hardest thing, because your mind, like something happens and your mind's like, you know, and you're obsessing about it. And I think like the mind's the final frontier, but if you can get calm in your body, your mind doesn't need to work as hard to explain why you're all tense, because you're not tense, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Okay. So if you, I mean, do you do this like regularly as a practice, or do you do it as a kind of like, God, I really need to do that right now? How do you do it?
both.
Is
So
is it a treatment or a prophylactic, right?
so I start my day with a mindset and meditation practice that I call getting my head on straight, which is like I wake up with racing thoughts. And so I will do a meditation that like puts my mind in a hopeful, open place. And then I will end the day with another meditation session to basically calm down, kind of clear everything. And throughout the day, I have like a playlist from YouTube, which is soothing music. We put the aromatherapy on usually in the evenings. And I have like a couple of things that I go to that, you know, when I'm leaving class and it was like very overwhelming, I have a thing like in the car, calm down. Or I put on my like jam music, dancey music, and it's like I just sort of reclaim my energy by dancing around in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's both. And that's why I thought like a daily email with something that gives people practices is helpful, because if you try to fix it from your mind first, what I find is like there's tension in my body and then my mind tries to explain it. I'm not feeling good. My mind tries to explain it. And then your mind gets this like laundry list of all this stuff. And I realized this around the solar flares. Like I was feeling weird. And it was like, my mind was like, oh, well, you're feeling like you're not good enough. You're feeling like you're not achieving enough. And then Sydney was like, there are solar flares. And I was like, oh, it could have just been some stupid thing from outside. It didn't have to be, you know, something that came from me, but my mind made it about me. And so I thought, well, if you can take care of your body first and calm down and clear all that crap out, if you're still left with something, then you address it. But most of the time I found that if you can just calm down, it all goes away. Like all the mental chatter just goes away.
Yeah.
And it's like not a problem anymore.
Yeah, because our brains are set up, our intellect is set up to solve problems, right?
Yeah.
So for a job to do, it'll look for a problem. So
Right.
if you're, like you say, if you're feeling antsy and you're feeling restless, we can sit down with our journal and look for a problem. And I see journaling as a massive addiction in the self-help world now, right? It's coming through this week and I've stopped doing quite so much of it. And I'm in action. I'm going, oh my God, like when you're in action, you don't even need to do all that journaling. You know, I needed to do it to some extent, but it's like, oh my God, seriously. Anyway, so what was I saying? Yeah, so it's getting into your body to distract your mind from looking for a problem, because we get what we look for. That's the other thing, the way the brain works. You probably know this from being a coach. Reticular activating system. What's going wrong? What's wrong with me? What's happening? Where am I mucking up right now? Like, ask yourself really difficult questions and you'll get the answer to them. So that's why we always want to be looking for kind of what's going right. And if the way to distract your busy brain, I love actually what you said about, instead of the absence of stimulation, it's putting in stimulation that's calming and soothing and sensory stimulation, to kind of almost like as a distraction. So I used to work in children's nursing, and we used to have people called play specialists who used to come, and if we were doing blood tests or stuff for the kids, like their job was to distract the children, you know, to play or to sing or to soothe them while we got on and did our stuff. Because it's like, if we can put this sensory stuff in there, they'll feel less down here. And that was like part of our job. God, I'm getting all tingly with this now. This is really interesting. So this is kind of, so it's distracting your brain using other senses, which is exactly what you've described.
Right. Right.
And I guess, I mean, I don't know anything about this particularly. I mean, I am an empath, but I'm not necessarily an HSP. But I think there might be some interesting stuff that comes out about being highly sensitive and highly intelligent, because we look for that intellectual answer. Like that's what we're trained to do when we're quite brainy and clever, right? And sometimes it's like, you know, in that circumstance, our intellect is really not what we need to look for. And you've described it beautifully, to go, I just distract it with something nice, with smells and with sound and with touch and with like whatever that is.
Yeah. Well, the core of this really started with the inner child healing work. And I don't feel really qualified to teach that, but I'm willing to share it, which is simply that, like, you know, those times that we're afraid or that we're not sure, that we're doubting, what I was really finding was I needed to then tell myself, you can do this. Like, you're in your head like, oh, can I do this? Can I do this? And you needed to, there's that question. And then you needed your mind to respond, yes, you can. Yes, you can. You needed to have that showing up for yourself to say, of course I can do it.
Yeah.
And to have that dialogue with yourself. And so when you have like a tension feeling, it's often because of that thought, you know, I'm afraid, I'm doubting, I don't know if I can do it. And then having something to relax the body lets it be easier for you to believe yourself when you say, of course you can do it. Does that make sense? Like, yeah. It's a 2-step. Like, if you're all tense and you're like, I can do it, like, you're not going to feel like you can do it. But if you can calm down, or you can get excited about what you're going to do, and then you can tell your brain, I can do it, then you're much more likely to believe it. Yeah. Which is, I think, another way of saying if you raise your vibration, that language I don't quite have my head around, but I think it's the same idea.
It's exactly the same idea. So that's exactly what I was going to say, is that it's about vibration. So excited vibration is good. Scared vibration, terrified vibration, negative vibration, self-talk that's trying to talk us out of stuff is not useful. So what you're finding is that and Abraham Hicks teach this, we can't go from massively negative to massively positive in one fell swoop. Mm-hmm. So the way that you've taught yourself to deal with this, and I want you to step forward and claim this as like something that's really going to be so useful for your community, because they might not know this, is you take yourself out of this negative headspace by getting into your body and just letting your mind be neutral, like it's clicking along in neutral gear for a bit, right? Mm-hmm. So you were going reverse because you're going, oh my God, Nicole, this is wrong, that's wrong. What am I doing? I'm overthinking. I'm whatever's going on. You're at this junction in India and you go, whoa. Let me just put this. Let me just get into here and let me just coast in neutral for a bit. And actually, coasting in neutral is a kind of surrender, release, allowing kind of energy. Because we're not controlling anything. We're not trying to go forward. We're not trying to go we're not going backwards the direction we're going. We're not really taking positive action, but actually it's better than going backwards, because we need that neutral to get into the forward motion.
Okay. I love that. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's exactly right. That it's very, and I find that too, that it's very, the minute someone's like, cheer up, you're like, I hate you. And you
like that helps. Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like, okay, I'm now just going to sit with my earphones in and just go. Because when you're in that state, it's not a resourceful state to try and take action from, because we can end up taking action that's a bit crazy. So I think this whole beautiful, I'm going to go into neutral right now. So you don't know the vibrational language necessarily, but you're describing it beautifully to go, I'm going to put some sensations in that keep my brain occupied. They stimulate my senses. They get me back into my body. And I'm smelling and I'm hearing and I'm tasting and I'm touching, and my brain's slightly distracted. And then when we're in neutral, we can start to, it basically gives clarity. So it opens up the channel for better ideas to come in. Because when we're all in a bit of a stew, like, if I was stood in the middle of that junction in India, I couldn't have a straight thought in my head. Mm-hmm. So it's like, let's clear the traffic. And we're still stood in India, wondering which direction to go in, but we're not distracted by all the stuff.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah, and I actually thought about, somebody that I had interviewed for their input was like, when's the group starting? And I was like, well, I actually physically created the group, but I didn't want to start it until I had like a start. And this actually feels like a great place to start.
It really does. It's like Nicole's toolkit. Like, it's just one tool, but sometimes like literally that's all you need. I could teach somebody like 4 steps of something, and I go, if that's all you remember on any given day, that's enough to change everything. But we just forget and get distracted and don't do it and need the practice and all this kind of stuff. But it's like, if this is all you taught people, this would probably be enough. Because I know lots of people, and I think it might have been you, and I've had a couple of clients who are way more sensitive than me going, how do I protect my energy from other people? And I'm like, I know how I do it, but I think you're talking about something that I have no comprehension of, because I don't go through that. But I said the way I think of it sometimes is like a bit of a cosmic shield, you know, and certain times when it's easier and more difficult. But I think it's a really good foundation and a really good tool that you've learned from other people. But the most important thing is that you use it really effectively, right? So when I'm running my challenges and when I'm doing stuff in my group, I only ever teach what I find useful for myself personally. I think I've only once in my group taught something that I go, a lot of people find this really useful. I've never used it, but I don't want to not teach it. But apart from that, like every single other thing, it's like, I'm just teaching what I do, because that's what people want. They want somebody that's struggled where they've struggled, and they want somebody that's got a really simple thing. And literally, if like every Monday morning you remind them and you go, if you're struggling right now, here's the basics, and you call it something, give it a funky name. And it's this, if you're, you know, in this negative busy junction in India, you get into neutral gear, and here's how you do it. And then you can make better choices. You can feel into your body. You can like just release it all and step into this kind of neutral space, which is a really, really receptive space to be in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think honestly, like, people are taught to be open because we're like social animals. And so you're taught to keep your energy open because you want to gather information from other people. And so this is more about, but like keeping your energy centered on yourself in, and like using your mind, using your body, using your attention, using your senses to keep it all inwardly focused. Yeah.
And you can talk about this really powerfully because it's something you use and something you experience. So you use it in a kind of, let's call it a crisis, being a bit over dramatic, but you use it as a treatment for like when you feel a bit wobbly, but you use it as a prophylactic. So it's like, well, I know if I do this in the morning and this in the evening, and if I'm feeling wobbly, I've got these 3 things that I do during the day. There's people out there that don't know those tools, right? We always undervalue what we know. And you've learned that by struggling with this issue. You know, you've learned by being, you know, overwhelmed, by being burnt out, by being driven crazy by all this stuff. And it's like, I really need some good tools right now.
Yeah.
So I'm giving you the little badge that says, you know, empath expert on it.
Yeah. So do you feel like with everything we just shared, it makes sense to have the structure that I suggested, which is like a Facebook group where there's trainings and discussion, and then this daily email that's tools? Does that make sense? Or does that feel like too much? Or does that feel like not enough? Or does it feel like it's...
My feeling initially is it's too much, because we're talking about empaths here, right?
Okay.
So they're already overwhelmed. I would start with something really basic. Like, I've had my group for a while, and I'm running a challenge right now. So I am completely full on in that group. That's not how my group is normally, kind of thing. So, but it could be a really good thing for you to have, like, so in a group, you can have like an ebook or a pinned post, or you could do a live stream about it that you pin at the top. So you put everybody that comes new to the group to the pinned post. Do you know how those work?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then you go, here's my, you know, treatment and prophylaxis for overwhelm. And you literally teach what you've just told me. Luckily, we're recording it on Zoom, so you've got all your own words that you probably don't remember saying and describing. And you go, this is what you do every single morning. This is what, you know, this is what you could try doing in the morning, in the evening, and when you need it during the day, and come back and report and let me know. And you just teach everyone that comes into the group goes to that video first. So everybody that comes in learns that tool.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, the idea, I like the idea of the community and the engagement, and the support, but I like the idea of the email is appealing because they are empaths and people can just open it when they feel like they need it. but I worried about coming up with like a brand new thing every day.
Yeah, I would start with weekly, really, until you've got a community. And the beautiful thing is when you've got a community, you poll them, right? So you don't have to guess in advance what they want. So then you go, I'm going to do a little survey. Now this group's been going for like a month and you've got however many people in it. You've got 120 people in it and it's been going for a month and you've seen what people are struggling with. Or you could do it, you know, whenever you feel like you want to go, I need to know my people better. And also when you set the group up, you can ask questions like I've got in my group. So it's like, and I've literally cut and pasted them into a Word document. So I've got everybody's answers so that when I want to create content, I've got everybody's like struggles, I've got everybody's visions, and more importantly I've got the actual words that those people use, because I will use different language to them for the same thing. And that's why like knowing who your tribe are is important. Does that make sense?
Yeah, this is my other concern, is like creating something like I want the people that I want, and I want to repel the people I don't want.
Great. That's what the questions are for.
Yeah. These empath groups are just full of people who are just there like attention seeking. And I'm like, we need to reject those. Like, how do we get these people going?
I had people, well, my group before I shut it was getting codependent. People like, oh, you're really inspirational, Claire. And I'm like, great, but you're not giving anything back. You're not taking any action. This is not all of them, but a group of them. And they'd be coming in going, oh, this has happened and that's happened. And I'd send them private messages going, I'm going to delete your post and I'll tell you why. I've told you this before. And in the end, I'm like, I'm looking for visionaries who are taking action and doing something amazing in the world, not people who are still sat there wondering where to get started. It's like, absolutely not. And so that's why, because we didn't have questions to start with, right, in Facebook groups. So having those questions is a great filter. So I offered this manifestation challenge, and people have applied but not answered the questions. So I sent them a private message saying, can you come back and answer the questions, and I'll pop you in the group. And if they haven't done it within 2 days, I just delete them. Because I'm like, if you can't be bothered to answer 3 questions, I can't be bothered to put you in the group. Like,
how did you decide what, this was something that I meant to write in my plan, but then I was like, I don't know what the hell to ask. Like, how did you decide what questions to ask?
I wrote them in about 2 seconds from my intuition. Right?
Okay.
I just go, what do I want to know about people? I want to know if they've got a vision. So I go, what's your vision? I want to know where they're stuck, what challenges you. And then I want to know, I can't remember what the third question is, what lights you up? Because when I'm talking about manifesting and people are stuck, I go, you know, all this stuff you said lights you up, like, do that. Like, you already told me what lights you up, so just do it. And also because I thought, what would be really useful? So you get 3 questions and they only get a few words to answer it. Because Esther, who I've worked with on and off for quite a while, she was like, I didn't know there was a word limit. So she sent me this whole document of, you see all her posts are astronomically long, and I'm like, oh God. But she's in there doing it, so it's funny. She makes me laugh. I'm like, I don't need a dissertation, love. It's a Facebook group. Anyway. And, but it's fun. It's fun. So what, you know, maybe we could look at that. Like, what do you want to know about your group, and what question would help you filter out the victim? Are you a victim?
Oh my God. Is whining your favorite thing?
How many days a week do you cry on your own at home? 0, 3, 7.
Oh my God, yes. Do you blame other people for your problems?
Whose fault is it that your life's shit?
Yes. Oh, that's a good point.
So here's what I want to tell you in seriousness, but this is quite funny, is it's your group, so you get to decide. Right? You get to decide who's in it, and you've gone through a little bit about the people that you do and don't want, and that's what we get from being in these lovely groups where we go, oh my God, these people are sucking the life out of me. So you have your own boundaries around what people post, how they post, you know, what sort of things you'll permit, and you say you'll be removed if you know, whatever you. So I had this when I had clients previously who set up their own groups and were sort of setting up their communities, and they were like, oh yeah, but I don't want to turn people away because, you know, it's this wanting to be liked thing, which I know is very strong for you. And I go, if you want to be liked by everybody, your boundaries are blown to bits, right? Because empaths and highly sensitive people are by their very nature quite manipulative, right? They're passive aggressive because that's what they've learned. That's how they've learned to deal with their emotions, right? It's aggression and passivity. And until they learn a more kind of middle ground. So if you've got those kind of people, you want to be really careful. Because as you know, in the groups, like, it infects everybody if you have that in there. So I'm very aware, like, this is why I said before with my own group, I would send somebody a message and I would say, I'm deleting your post, and I'll tell you why. And when it was the same person a few times, I'm like, I'm going to remove you from the group. Like, God bless you, but you're taking my time and energy. And people are in there going, oh, you poor thing. Oh, I'm really, no, like, empower her to go, what are you doing? You know, like, seriously. So yeah, so maybe, I mean, you know, we can brainstorm now, or you can go off and have a think about the questions. But it's like, because you're clear who you want in the group, like, what 3 questions would give you an idea of where people are at and what they're, you know, you could, like, something like, what's your biggest struggle with being an empath stroke HSP? Because people will put different things in there, and then when you're getting the experts in, it's like, well, you know that 5 people have said this, 15 people have said that, 20 people have said that. So you go, people want answers to these things. So it gives you, it's like market research, your questions, as well as I wanted mine to give me just an idea of who these people were. If I didn't know them already, it's like, what's your vision? And people's visions are great. And some of them are like, but the ones who really excite me, the ones who go, God, their vision sounds great. And their challenge is something that's pretty straight. And most people, I go, what stops you? Me? Well, there we go, you know, they're all aware of it, so it's all cool. So there's none of that, oh, it's this and it's that and my circumstances, but it's all like, I'm the only one stopping me, or I'm just avoiding it, or I'm, you know, whatever. And I put self-aware people with a kind of exciting vision who know what lights them up, and they go straight in. And I'm like, great, because they're the people I want in there, because they'll be in there doing the work, and they're self-aware, and I know that because of the questions I've asked them and because of the answers they give. And because if people couldn't be bothered to answer the questions, I'm like, I want people in there, especially with my challenge, who are taking part. And if they're and I, you know, one of them was like a friend of mine from Bournemouth, and she's like, oh, I was really busy and I couldn't answer the questions. I said, well, if you do them for me now, then I'll pop you in. And she still hasn't got back to it. It's like, it's fine. It's not a priority that she's in my group right now because she's busy. So actually, she's dead energy if I put her in, even if she's a friend of mine.
Right. No, I think you're absolutely right. Yeah. And I would rather, I mean, my group, my intention for your manifesting challenge is to, like, set up this group, get it running, and have 10 people in by the end of 30 days.
Great.
And so this is like part of the energy that I'm putting into getting this up and running. Are we at the end of our 40 minutes?
Yeah, we must be, actually. So do you want to have a little break for 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and do another 40?
Yes, that sounds fantastic. I need to run to the restroom, and
cool.
So
I will send you. Well, I'll just do what I need to do, and I'll come back and I'll reopen another live, another Zoom, and then I'll see you in about 5 minutes back in the room.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Claire.
Okay.